Hello, people. Welcome to the community of the Growth Mindset podcast. Guys, if you are a first time listener, don't forget to subscribe on whichever platform you're listening from so that you don't miss on more interesting episodes coming up in following weeks. And for our daily listeners, here we are again with a new episode where we will interview another interesting personality from a unique industry and understand how they were able to accomplish this great level of success. Remember, this is a podcast where we learn easy, practical methods and tips that we can implement in our daily lives from the very best and the most successful people known today. Because as we all know, success leaves clues. And we, the people having the growth mindset, will use these clues to create a better, more fulfilling, and a successful life. So, let the growth begin. Jonaed, thank you so much for your time on the Growth Mindset podcast. It is a pleasure to have you.
Thank you for having me. I always love talking and sharing value.
Great. So, Jonaed, for people who don't know you, would you just like to go ahead and quickly introduce yourself?
Yeah. So I help people without college degrees find meaningful jobs that pay well. I'm the founder of NoDegree.com and the host of the No Degree podcast, where I help people without where I share the stories of those without college degrees so others can follow in their path.
Interesting. So do you have a degree yourself? Is that how did you start this journey of NoDegree.com? Before this, I believe you were working somewhere else, right?
Yeah. So unfortunately, I have a master's degree from Columbia University. I paid too much for it. This month has been 6 years since I owned the domain, and the journey's I found it in 2014. Unfortunately, I don't come from wealthy parents, or else I wish I would have been working at, then. And, that's how life works. It's like, it's sort of good that I sort of had to go through that experience. And I basically came at it because I kind of saw how expensive college was going in the US. And it's simply just unaffordable, like how much money they charge and all that. And I also saw the stigma attached to people without college degrees. I know you're in India and you kind of see that, you have to, you have it where people wait like 3 years to get into IIT and they put so much value.
Exactly. If we start talking about that particular matter, I think it should take us, a couple of episodes just to understand what the stigma is here out.
Yeah, no. So yeah, it's just too much. It's just too much value is placed on. Like, you get people who are just terrible people, but just because of the schools they went to, they're just seen. And even their professions, if you're a doctor, you're seen as, you're this high. But you disregard the ambulance driver, you disregard all the people in that chain, right? You only assign value to the doctor when there's so many people. Even like people who take care of old people, they're just not really seen as valuable, but they shouldn't, right? They are just as important as everybody else.
100%. And when did you design, or why did you get this idea about starting NoDegree.com? Where did you see that, what was your intrinsic motivation to start this?
So, do you know Reddit?
Yeah.
Yeah, so 6 years ago on Reddit, someone asked a question: for those of you without a college degree who make over 6 figures, what do you do? How'd you get the job? And they were all jobs like, I'm a claims adjuster, I repair elevators, I'm a surveyor, all these jobs you don't think of. No one says, hey, I want to grow up and be a claims adjuster and do this. And so we have that. Then it was like, how'd you get the job? My uncle, my cousin, friend, someone told me to do this. And I was like, why can't I be that friend? Why can't I be that person? And so then I searched up trades.com. That was for sale, but I know they're going to ask a lot of money. That's dictionary, one word. So I typed in nodegree.com, and we got an inquiry like a few days later. Like, the first one I didn't answer, and the second one they gave me a price. It was like $1,800. And then my friend, since they were a domain reseller, we negotiated to like $1,433, and that's that I split it with 2 of my friends in college, and that's how it started. And they're still with me to this day.
Wow.
In the business.
That is amazing. And what was your background like? What's your background like? Where are you from? How long has it been you've been in New York?
I was born in Bangladesh. I came here when I was 3 years old, so that was like 94. So I've been here like 25, 26 years.
Wow.
And just went through. Obviously, I have Bengali parents, which are similar to Indian parents, where it's like, oh, get the highest grade. Look at that kid. He goes to this school and that stuff. But look, I always did well in school, and it came easier to me than other people. And obviously, it does have some value, but I just find that they just overemphasize too much, right? When I was doing sports, they were like, why are you doing that? Just read. It's just, and you see a lot of kids suffer. A lot of, Southeast Asian kids, they're not very well rounded. Right?
Correct.
They may be very good in one area, but some of them are not good at presenting. They're not, like, you see a lot of the doctors, they're terrible at communicating. And so that's sort of what I have to say about that.
How was your parents' response to when you said that you want to start your own business? Because as you said, right, the parents, especially South Indian parents, when you say you have a good degree but then you want to start your own business, do the hustle, there's a lot of your parents may have second thoughts about why you want to do this when you have a safer job, right? So how was your parents' response?
They still wonder what I do. Unfortunately, so I still live at home, right? Because it takes time to sort of build a startup. And I mean, even then, you still want to be, as you see now, it's like it's very good to focus on saving money, because had I moved out, I would have been struggling, right?
Yep.
But now it's like, at least, and it just works. Now I can support them, and then when things get a lot better, then I'll move out.
Yeah.
So it's just, my parents were never really, they're not really supportive of it, because like I used to be an actuary. And actuaries make very good money. It's like a very respected field, and it's like hard to get into, and you have to pass exams. But for me, it's like I didn't want to study 100 to 300 hours for exams for a career that it's not like I hated it, but it's not like I was passionate about it, right?
Yep.
It's not like I look forward. Like Monday morning, I was like, oh, gotta wait, and you gotta wait like X number of years, and in corporate, it's always just like the same, but more work, more responsibilities. I just wasn't, and not enough impact, right? You're so far removed from impacting people that I wasn't passionate about it.
So what exactly is your passion, Jonaed? Where are you heading? What do you want to do?
My passion really is just, I really love helping like those without degrees, and just in general careers really realize like where they can go. Because a lot of people without degrees, sometimes they just don't have the opportunity to get degrees, or they're not the best students, and they've been told that they're not going to make it in life, that they're destined to failure, and kind of like unlocking their potential and then showing them, hey, look, you can do something, that you are valued, and all that stuff. Yeah.
Now, obviously, since you're an expert in resume building and, people without degrees, right? Now, obviously, there are two kinds of people out here. The first ones who have degrees, and the second one who do not have a degree, right?
Yeah.
So let's break it out. And, I want to personally ask you first as to, for people who have a degree, right? Now, this pandemic event. You understand how crazy things are. Many people have been laid off. They don't have a job. But when the market reopens, right, they're again going to be hiring. So what are some tips that you advise, for people who have a degree to make a killer resume? What are the do's and don'ts?
So I'll tell you, I specialize in the U.S., but I see the issue a lot in India. Formatting is a big thing, because a lot of these resumes, they go through online systems, and you have to really do a lot of research. So if it's going through an online system, you got to keep it simple and direct. I see people, and again, you got to adjust it for your culture, but I kind of go for the highest value things. A lot of people, when they write resumes, they list everything they do. Like, oh, I pick up the phone, I fax, I do this. It's like, don't, but you are doing big $1 million deals, or you're saving this much money, so focus on the highest level things and focus on results. A lot of people, I don't know, I stay away from, oh, I work well with people. Everybody says they work well with people. Give an example. Like, hey, I trained 20 people in this onboarding process that takes 4 weeks. Right? Give examples, like how many people don't seem to put numbers. Like, even if you do take calls, talk about, oh, I take 50 plus customer service calls daily. Give something example, because then if you say, hey, take customer calls, is it 2 or 200 a day, right? And there's a big difference.
Yeah.
So a lot of numbers, just make it easy to see. A lot of people are not looking at resumes for a long time. And I see people going for like 3, 4. Again, some jobs require maybe for the government and all that, but for most jobs, just you got to summarize it. You got to be simple and direct. Simple and direct is the way to go.
Okay. So how many pages should a resume be? It should be 1, 2, or 3. Because I've seen various resumes.
You should try to make it as small as necessary. So obviously, if you have experience, let's say 5 to 10 years plus, you're gonna go to 2. 3 has to be like, if you're a contractor and you're doing jobs like 6 months to a year long, and you have several. That's 3 is like the highest I would ever recommend. Most of the ones I do are 1 or 2. So it's all about and don't have positions longer than 10 to 12 years. Again, adjust this based on India. I'm focusing on the US, but also try to think like, and look at what's required for the specific job. But typically you don't need, I wouldn't say put more than 10 to 12 years experience, because if you're director, vice president, you don't need your internship on there. Like, people put their internship on there. Maybe you could put titles, but they're not hiring you for what you did 10 plus 15, 20 years ago. They're hiring you more for like the last 5 years. That's what I would recommend.
Makes sense. And now, as you said initially, right, whenever there is a resume, it is basically first thing, it goes through a system, right? It's not directly where, a real person is sitting and, vetting your resumes. So what are some tips that people could use, some practical tips, so that their resumes are, qualified to the next level? Because if you're applying in some, let's say, big MNCs where there are, 20,000, 40,000 employees, your chances of at least your resume being shortlisted is actually very, very less. Once you pass that stage is when, it becomes easier for you. So what are some tips that you recommend people to put in their resumes? Say like 3 tips, top 3 tips.
Simple. So don't have fancy formatting. Like, people do these, I don't know. I think they require in India, but I would say no, don't have any pictures. Don't have any, like, what's the special symbols? So fancy characters, all these new style resumes where it's like it looks nice on a website, but it's hard to read. And then the other thing is, make sure that it means something. Like, you see people with bars, like they'll say they're, I don't know, the bar's like 80% filled in communication. Like, what does that mean? Like, what is 80% it doesn't mean like anything. Yeah. You gotta, so make sure it makes sense to someone who doesn't know you. Be simple and concise, and focus on results and impact. Okay. If I could give 3 tips.
Okay. And what is some common, mistakes, or let's say blunders that people make in their resumes to avoid? What are some things that you've observed personally?
I mean, so I've seen a lot of resumes from people in India, because I get a lot of those on LinkedIn. I see a lot of typos. And, you don't want typos, because you don't know who's reading it, how they're going to be, and you could easily find someone to proofread it. So don't do typos. I understand it. It happens. The other blunder is too long. It's way too long. It's like, I don't know about you, but it's like most people have, if they have 100 resumes to read, and they don't want to read the resumes, right? And they finish a meeting at 2:45. They finish the meeting early, and the next meeting at 3. You think they want to read 4 pages? They're gonna skim through it. So you got to make sure it's simple, very easy to absorb, so that they understand. Don't go too fancy.
Makes sense. And do you have any insight as to what interviewers look for, in the interview process? I understand you have more exposure in the resume building space, but do you also have an insight as to what exactly people are looking for when they want to hire somebody?
So look, unfortunately, so I do interview prep too. So unfortunately, everybody has a different opinion, right? Everybody who's interviewing you, they have their own way, and they're not skilled in interviewing, right? They have their own opinions on, this person said this, that means this and that. You have to follow some best practices. So the thing is, you have to really focus on yourself. You have to know what you bring to the table, why they should hire you, the impact you're going to have to the organization. One thing that I have a podcast episode, and I'll give you the link on how to prepare for an interview. And a lot of the tips are like, look, know what you bring to the table. So you can say, hey, I've done this. I have these skills, right? I'm very good at working with people. I recommend people practice saying their answers out loud, because oftentimes they say the answers in their head a little, but they'll never say it out loud. And then when you talk out loud, it comes out different. They're like, oh, well, why do you want this job? Well, I like this. Wait, I mean, I like this. And then it takes away from you. So if you can go and you can say the answers and you can say it direct, that's, your interview is going to be much stronger.
Okay. And you also host a podcast channel, right, wherein you are interviewing, especially, as you said, people who don't have a degree, right?
Yeah.
So what is that thing that you've observed for people who don't have a degree? What patterns do they have who have become successful? Because every successful person has patterns, habits, right?
Yeah.
So what are those?
Now look, for the people on my podcast, they're generally successful. So this is for a successful person without a college degree.
Yep.
They pretty much don't take no for an answer, in the sense that they're gonna figure out a way that if they weren't accepted, they're gonna find a way around, and they get creative, right?
Yeah.
That they're not comfortable being where they are, and some of them have had tremendous. You live in India, you see some people with tremendous lives, but they're always learning. That a lot of people mistake that education with school. School is not the only place to get an education, and school is not the only place to learn. So they always find ways to learn themselves. They have good work ethic, because regardless of what you do, you need to have good work ethic in certain areas, and they really specialize in certain things. And it's just like, it's all about growth. That it's not about where you are at 18. It's where you strive to be tomorrow, and what you're doing to build towards a better future for yourself tomorrow.
Interesting. Yeah, that is a very important tip that you've basically given out. Because if you have a mindset wherein, let's say you restrict yourself or you give up, obviously you're not gonna go on to the next level. And the resilience that people show when they have no degree, because let's say there are so many people, Mark Zuckerberg, he dropped out of college, right? Because he had a passion, he had a calling, and he did not take no for an answer. Beat anybody like that, right? So that's a very important trait. I also personally believe that people should master. Coming back to platforms where people could apply for jobs, what according to you are some great platforms? I see that LinkedIn is one of them, right?
Yeah.
So what are some platforms where people, let's say if I'm looking for a job at Microsoft, right? So what can I do to make sure that I land a job there? Are there some hacks other than any tips or tricks that I could do? Go to some different platforms where my chances could increase, something like that.
So look, I'm not sure. I know in the US they use Indeed. Is Indeed common in India? So use Indeed, use LinkedIn. Now, I saw this post on LinkedIn actually, like 6 hours ago, where someone says like, look, you applied and you got rejected to like a job at Google, and they're like, your issue is you applied. You gotta, for these top companies, you have to get a referral. Because think about it, they get 1,000 applications. They may get 50 referrals. They only have 10 spots. What are you gonna look at first?
Yeah.
If the referrals are good enough, why are you gonna waste your time waiting through the 1,000?
Correct.
So you really, again, that's when school doesn't play as big of a factor. Unless you go to IIT, right? Then you can go anywhere. But you have to build. That's why building relationships is so important. That it's non-traditional. There's no formula. But focus on really building relationships so you have people vouch for you, point you in the right direction. Because think about it, if you get a phone call with someone at Microsoft and they really like you, it's so much easier than an online application. Because online application, you have no face, you have no voice. You're just a piece of paper, and there's only so much you can do on a piece of paper.
Guys, this brings us to the end of the part 1 of this interview. Stay tuned, the part 2 will be uploaded this Thursday, where we will dive more deeper into the conversation and discover what it takes to be truly successful. Until then, take care of yourself, your family, and the people around you. Peace.